you saw the very best players the entire country has to offer, and you saw it throughout the course of the weekend.
He's growing, he's improving at such a rapid rate. He's going to be a very good player.
This guy's a cross between Sean Marion and Lamar Odom. He's a 6'8" lefty, a high-level athlete, but also got a little bit of point-forward skills in him as he can handle and pass the ball extremely well. At this point, they are simply the standard by which everyone else is judged in prep school basketball. He's considering the likes of Michigan, North Carolina, Kentucky, Kansas.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Upside Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Finkelstein, and on this episode, we have new Boston College head coach Earl Grant with us. And Coach, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Adam.
So, Coach, I know you're somewhat new to the region. This is my region. I've been here my whole life. So, what has the last 30 plus days been like as you've adjusted to Boston, which is really the capital of New England?
I mean, it's been amazing. One of the things that's been interesting, though, is everybody talked to me about how cold it get up here. They talked to me about how hot it got up here. It's pretty hot. It's some good southern weather.
Yeah.
4 seasons up here. No, but it's been great. I mean, Boston's an unbelievable place. Certainly, BC itself is a great program, high academics. Guys can really achieve anything they want here. Anything's possible here. We got a lot of NBA players, still playing. Reggie Jackson's starting for the Clippers, and Dudley's finishing his career with the Lakers. And so, anything's possible. And big-time city. And it's a winning program. It's a lot of history here. I don't know if there's too many programs can say they got an ACC championship and a Big East championship. It's rich history here, and I'm just excited to be a part of this program and have the opportunity to build.
Coach, what was the path like from Charleston to Boston College? Because you were not a guy who had experience in this region before, and it's no secret that when the announcement was made, people weren't necessarily expecting you to be making this move, not because of your win-loss record, which had been exceptional at Charleston, but because you were a new name to the region. So what was that path like, and what was it about Boston College that appealed to you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you've been a head coach for 7 years, really enjoyed my time at College of Charleston. And we built that program up. I hadn't been to the NCAA in 20 years when I got there. I took over in September. We were able to get back to the NCAA tournament, got to the NIT. We had 3 NBA players. We graduated 13 out of 14. So there were good things happening. And there were other opportunities to leave in those 7 years, which I never felt, inclined to leave. And I loved where I was. And I didn't feel like some of the programs that were possibilities for me and my family were the right time or the right fit. Obviously when Boston College came about, the energy that Pat Kraft, exhibited to me in the interview process, as well as Father Leahy here, the president for 25 years, the energy they displayed to me and what they were looking for as it pertains to somebody that can find individual players that come in that fit BC, that can compete academically, that can compete in the ACC. And they wanted a coach that can, have a transformative program, meaning for me, the most important thing is the man that I bring into the program, and how do I develop him, me and my staff? How do we develop the man? How do we make a better person? And how do we put him in a position where when he leaves us in 4 years, he's ready for this world that he's going out into? So that's number one for us. And I felt like, like I could grow in my faith here at Boston College, being a Jesuit school where they don't shy away from faith and growing your faith. That's a fit for me and my family. And so hopefully I can attract guys that want to grow as people and want to compete in the ACC. So there's a lot of things that attracted me to Boston College, having coaching in the ACC before at Clemson, seeing the type of player we need to compete, be in the top half of the league, to, get an at-large bid, to, make a NIT Final Four run. Like I saw the player that we needed. And so I felt like Boston College presented a great opportunity. And the history was just so good. I mean, just how much winning they had, with Al Skinner and Jim O'Brien. I thought it was a great opportunity. Thought Donahue and Christian, had some good years in there. So I think it's a great foundation for me to build.
Absolutely. Now, New England is a unique place in a lot of different ways, and I know you've probably started to get an appreciation for that since you've arrived. There is a very opinionated fan base. There is a very outspoken local media presence, and the grassroots climate is political from a basketball perspective. So all of those different things are things that, from my perspective, someone coming in from outside of the region, you've got to try to navigate and adapt to as quickly as possible. And this isn't unique to you. Anytime there's been a new coach coming into the region, I always think like, geez, there's a lot of landmines here for them to have to sidestep. What has been, as you look at some of those challenges, I want to start with the media side. There was people saying, oh, he's got to put together a good staff. He's got to get local connections. That seemed to be something that you embraced right off the bat, having a couple of guys join you who have very strong local reputation and ties. So was that something you were aware of from the beginning?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things to it. It's the second time in my career that I've left my region, meaning my region has been, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina. That's been my region. And I had to get out of my comfort zone when I left my region to go to the Midwest, going out to Wichita State. I had to get uncomfortable. I had to go to Texas. I had to go to Vegas. I had to go to LA to recruit. I had to go to Arkansas. Fell in love with Arkansas kids. Fell in love with Texas kids. Boston College, our biggest number in our enrollment are from Texas, California. So for me, I was very excited about coming out of the region. I think being in the CAA for 7 years, coming up every year to play against Northeastern and Hofstra, made me have a better appreciation for this area, because what I figured pretty quickly in the CAA, I always loved coming to Boston. And, it was my favorite trip. It was my hardest trip, but it was my favorite trip. And so I think, as it pertains to media is media. Right? They have no reason to believe in me. I am out of the region, and they don't owe me any favors. And obviously the coaches here, they're people. It's all about relationships. So there already are some relationships established from just being in the profession for 20 years with coaches in the NEPSAC. But at the end of the day, they're people. We got to recruit them. We got to treat them right. We got to take care of their players when we get them. We got to recruit with disappointment, knowing that we're not going to get everybody. And we got to find toughness. There's a guy that really want to be at BC. And there's a guy that can really be successful here. And the opportunity right now is unbelievable. ACC, the city of Boston, the academics, new facility being opened up, $40 million practice facility coming up. It's a new era. It's pretty good. I got three sons, 14, 13, and 10. And I just know for me, when it comes down to these programs, okay, who are the people you put your children around? Who are the coaches? What are they teaching? How are they developing these guys? And, I think it's a great time for a young man to come to Boston College.
Now, talk to me about the opportunity. What is it that you were looking for? What are the things that you were going to prioritize? Because before we went on the air, you mentioned how evaluating was going to be a really important job for you and your staff. But talk to me about what specifically you guys are going to prioritize in that evaluation process.
Well, I want to find young men that want to be a part of something that's bigger than themselves. That they want to be a part of winning program, and they want to build. They get excited about having an opportunity to leave footprints in the sand and leaving a legacy. This is an opportunity for us in this era to do that. The time is right. So I want kids that are coming from winning programs, kids that have a chip on their shoulder. And to be honest with you, a talented guy that maybe is a little bit underappreciated and's got a chip on his shoulder. I think that's important here. I think a lot of players that have played here, they fit that mold, going all the way back to Dana Barrows, who, he was about to play football in college. And then last minute, Boston College offered him a scholarship. I think guys like Jared Dudley, He signed with Boston College in August from California. So Troy Bell was Big East Player of the Year. He came from Minnesota. He signed late. So I just think that all of those guys were underappreciated. Reggie Jackson, Jerome Robinson. So we have to evaluate. We have to find a player that's good enough to play in the ACC that would love to be here. That they would be so appreciative of this opportunity, and they want to be a part of our program. They want to be a part of this community, BC Nation, that's so rich in history, and build. And so I think that's the most important thing we got to do. I like toughness. I like guys that are tough. I mean, sometimes you can't out-talent a team, but you still can out-tough a team. You still can outwork a team. So I think we got to find workers. And, if you really had to ask me, if we got 4 scholarships, give me 2 hard and 2 soft. The 2 hard is the automatic guy that, that's the worker. That's the grimy, gritty guy. The soft, he maybe don't want to do all that grimy, gritty stuff, but, you look up and he got 5 threes he just made. So, he's a talented guy. So we just got to find him. And we've been able to find him wherever I've been, whether it be Wichita, Clemson, or College of Charleston. We have NBA players at all of those places. We have first-team all-conference guys at all of those places. So I would imagine we can do it here.
All right, 2 follow-up questions along those lines, Coach. You mentioned in a couple things I didn't know there about the college's applicant pool from Texas and California, as well as your own roots. Do you have a plan for what your personal recruiting pipeline will look like from a geographic standpoint? Obviously, you got to get some inroads in New England, but you're not going to, I'm sure, be able to build the whole roster locally here. So what parts of the country are you going to target, number one? And then after that, I want to ask you about player development, because I know you'd mentioned, guys in all your previous stops. So, but first, in terms of the recruiting geography, is that something that you guys have strategized yet?
Yeah, 2 things I'll say about that is, one, and I'll just mention College of Charleston just to give you a reference. And Wichita State. When we were at Wichita State, the majority of our roster was from the South or Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at College of Charleston, we had guys from Texas, Houston. We had guys from Arkansas. So our roster never was built with all kids in our region. You have the usual, relationship currency. Now, I think it's important that we do have players from this region. That's the one thing I think is very important. So I'm going to try extremely hard to get these young men within the 3-4 hour radius, the knapsack, Connecticut, Maine, Boston, all across Massachusetts, New Hampshire, whatever there's a player in this region and there's a player that fits us, I'm going to try to recruit them. Right. And I'm going to recruit with disappointment because, again, right now some guys aren't going to come. And to be honest with you, a lot of them hadn't came in the past. But there have been the guys who did come, they were special, and they had a lot to do with building the programs that had success. So I'm always going to pay attention to the players that are around my campus. I think that's so important because there is a kid out there that would love to be at Boston College. So I think that's very important, even for the fans. If you got a kid from Connecticut or Boston or, the knapsack that's in this region, that's living in this region, his family can get to campus. His people from his high school can get here. His AAU coaches can get here. We can develop those relationships. And because I believe anything's possible. You can go to medical school when you graduate from here. You can go to law school. You can get MBA. You can get great jobs. Everything is possible if we can show that we can take care of some of these kids in this region. Then maybe that next kid will come because of how we took care of the kid prior to him.
Yeah, sure. And that really is the lineage of Boston College. It's the highest level athletics, so along with the highest level academics. I mean, that's at least on the exterior, that was the way the program was viewed, when I was growing up in the region. As I mentioned, I want to ask you about player development because you've had pros at every stop, and very few of them were considered, on that track when you got them. So are there specific pillars of your player development program, or what do you attribute the growth that we've seen from so many of your guys over the years?
Yeah, it starts with the evaluation. We find that talented guy that maybe is a little bit undersized. So depending on where different places I've been, it's always was a certain niche Whereas at Clemson, the niche was the 6'6" tweener that nobody thought he was big enough to play the 4, and he wasn't skilled enough to play the 3. But he could rebound at 12 feet. And he played hard, and he had energy, and he had verve, vigor, and vitality. He had life, and then we get those guys, and, they gain 15 pounds, and you work with them with their ball handling and shooting, which we always can help. Can't help the guy rebound at 12 feet, but you can help him a better ball handler and shooter and understanding the game from an IQ standpoint. So at Clemson, it was the tweener. At Wichita State, it was the toughness, finding tough guys, as well as finding, a little bit of underappreciated guys. A lot of different players came through Wichita State. When I was leaving out, Van Fleet was coming in, and so, that's a 5'11" point guard. And so, at College of Charleston, it was, we wanted passionate guys, and we wanted gym rats, and we were trying to revive the program with just life and passion and guys who love to be in the gym. So we tried to change the culture that way. First recruiting class, we bring in Jarrell Brantley and Grant Riller. Both guys get drafted. And so,
and Grant Riller, I heard a story about how you fell in love with him when you were at Clemson. Is that true?
Yeah, very interesting. We was down in Kansas City at I think it was the Sunflower Classic. It was the last tournament of the month, and a lot of times you go in the office and you talk about where you're going to go, and you try to figure out each assistant where their trip's going to be. So Brad Brunell said, "Hey, look, somebody's got to go down to Kansas City. We got a couple kids down there." And so everybody raised their hand and said, "I'm going to go to Vegas. I'm going to go to Orlando." And I said, "Well, I'll go down to Kansas City for the last day and a half. I'll take a red eye, get in there, and go for the last day and a half." And I went to see Kerry Blackshear.
Okay.
And we were recruiting him. And I remember, like yesterday, Gorilla got down with a game, and he goes outside. The gym's cold. There's no reception on your phone. So he goes outside and sit down. And I said this to him. Wasn't no violation, wasn't no bump. But I just said to him, "Hey, man, I really appreciate how you play. You're going to make somebody a great point guard. If we needed a point guard, man, we'd be all over you at Clemson." And that was in July. I got hired at College of Charleston 2 months later in September.
Wow.
So when I got the job, it was the first call I made. "Hey, man, you remember me?" And the rest was history.
So do you have anybody that you called in the last 30 days and said, hey man, you remember me? Is that we got another one of those lined up?
I got a couple of things working. Hopefully it'll all come through. We just got done with our 2021 class. We were able to sign, 7 guys, and all guys that we really wanted and needed. So spent a lot of time there. So I've been patient with 2022. Because I really want to see some of these guys, and some of them we haven't been able to see because the process is speeding up. Guys are taking official visits here in June, and guys are making decisions. So, because we jumped into the party late on a few guys, we missed a few, and now we gotta adapt to the new process of these guys speeding everything up. So, it's a little bit uncomfortable because I would like to be able to watch them play, not only watch them play to make a good decision for me in Boston College, but watch them and watch them play to make a decision for them in their career, because there was 2,000 transfers out there. And so the evaluation process ain't just for me. Like, whether I offer your kid or not offer your kid, that ain't just for me. I want to make a good decision for your kid if I'm recruiting your kid as well. And again, when you have 3 sons, you look at it a little bit different. If you offer a kid, you hadn't seen him, and that's like somebody offered my kid who hadn't seen my kid, I'm going to feel kind of weird about that, knowing what I know about the profession and how many kids have transferred over the last 2 years. So, the desire for me to evaluate and be a little more patient in the process, that's not just for me in Boston College. That's for young men. My honesty to that young man and his mom and dad about, hey, look, if I say I'm offering you, this is like a really offer that I'm gonna commit to, and I struggle with it a little bit because I want to be committed. I want to have committable offers as it pertains to, if I offer you, you can commit right away, and there's no question about whether or not you have that opportunity.
And that is not necessarily the culture up here. You know, we touched on this a little bit earlier, but when we talk about the grassroots landscape and the way that the offers have kind of evolved and the way that a lot of coaches kind of view offers. So I commend you for having that attitude, and I'm sure it's being able to communicate that to the people in the grassroots space, I'm sure has been a challenge, but an important first step, I would think, in establishing kind of, how you're going to carry yourself in the region.
No, absolutely. And again, some of it is, it's about relationships and it's about honesty. Maybe a year or 6 months or 8 months, guys won't like the fact that we're being extremely honest. But I think in a matter of a couple years, maybe they can respect the idea that, we say something, we back it up. So, for me, it's always going to be about speaking the truth and being honest and doing right by people, and let your word be your bond, And so as it pertains to these young men now, it's a little different. I have offered some guys, and I had to be more like an NBA front office guy where you don't get to necessarily see the kid in person. It's almost like we're recruiting kids right in our region, but it's like recruiting international kids, meaning you don't always get to see them in person. So
yeah, you get to do the film.
Watching the film. So we have done that, and we have, offered some guys off film, which is uncomfortable, but that's the landscape where we're in right now with everything that happened with COVID and the pause and not being able to go out.
Coach, we've touched upon a lot of things here. You've talked about your family, your recruiting philosophy, the different geographic regions you've been in. If there are people listening, whether it's Boston, New England, or BC alumni from different parts of the country or the globe, what would be something that you would want them to know about Earl Grant that maybe hasn't come up yet?
Well, number one is I've won everywhere I've been. That's number one. So we're going to win. I can't put a timetable on that, because what I've discovered at going to these different places and being day one with different head coaches on jobs, and also being a day one head coach at College of Charleston and seeing the process of what you go through. There's some things you got to do over the first couple of years, but I've never seen that process or the formula we've had, the places I've been, fail. And so I'm pretty confident in our system. I'm pretty confident in our blueprint. We just got to get the right young men to come to BC and trust us and take a chance on us that, they believe in some of the same things we believe in. And once we do that, which it takes the first two recruiting classes that are critical, because those first two recruiting classes, they're going to be about 5 to 8 kids that they're going to turn the program around. So and that's why the evaluation process is so important. And because you can't get that back. You got 13 scholarships, all of them are important. And so, but for me, I'm going to wake up every day and I'm going to roll my sleeves up. If you're talking about BC Nation, they just need to know, hey, look, Boston's a blue collar place. Okay. It's a fighter's place. It's for a worker. We're going to roll our sleeves up and work, and we're going to try to find kids that believe in that same thought process and things too. Hard work works, and there's no substitution for hard work. But be honest, look people right in the eyes, have a great level of humility to you. We are who we are, and hopefully we can attract guys that fit who we are. And once we do that, it's going to be a beautiful thing.
The vision is obviously you present the vision in a very compelling way there, and I appreciate your time this morning here. I know we're getting ready to finally get on the road and go recruiting, but before I let you go, I have one more question. I usually like to ask every coach or guest on the podcast about this, a little bit different, but it's about favorite books, things that you like to read, and I give people an audible too, because feel free to say, okay, I saw this documentary or this movie or this podcast, but things when you're not on the floor, when you're not watching film, when you're not recruiting, What is it that you're reading, watching, digesting that's helping you grow and continue to learn?
Yeah, I mean, I read a lot of different books. I mean, the one I read the most is the Bible. I probably read the Bible the most. I mean, there's a lot of good stories in there and a lot of different lessons in terms of leadership. Jesus was the best leader. He had 12 disciples, and he led by serving them. That leader will wash your feet and be okay with that. Okay, I do read the Bible. I like to read like Real Madrid, like some of those books about good cultures and how people develop good culture. So I like to read those types of books. So I had a really good book I was reading on Real Madrid. Tall Blacks, the rugby team over there.
Yeah. New Zealand, right?
New Zealand. So, it's their culture, what they do. And all of those books, it's all about the selection process. Who do you let come into your program? Coaches, players, like who you bring into your program. So again, it goes back to the evaluation. Like we talking about trying to build a culture. It's all about who you bring into your program. So again, you have to evaluate. You got to make sure. And so I like those type of books. I have read. It was a unique book I read. I think it was Jonathan Nathaniel Seagull. It's about the seagull, and it was a book that Kobe Bryant recommended before he passed away. God bless the dead, about seagulls and how this one seagull separated from the pack of 15. And he didn't be like the regular seagulls, just going and looking for bread on the ground and fighting over it. He wanted to start to learn how to do different tumbles and different dives. He wanted to be that bird that dove down for the fish on his own. You see those guys be by themselves all the time. So it talks about separating yourself. If you're going to be different, if you're going to be special, you got to separate yourself. But it was a book about seagulls, and I do like some of John Gordon's books, and then I like probably one of my favorite books was The Chop Wood Carry Water. That was a good book, and I did like Energy Bus when I read that. But then the Art of War, I read that. I got to go back and read it because sometimes I don't understand exactly what's going on in there. It's like very tricky. You got to catch it. So read it.
I like to try and get these books after I get a recommendation, read up, and the Seagull one is particularly interesting, especially if it was a Kobe recommendation. So I'm gonna look into that, and then hopefully if I see you on the road here in the next 6 weeks, we'll be able to catch up about the Seagull book. Coach, I know how busy this time is. I know your guys are getting back on campus. Tomorrow is the first day we're going to be back on the road, or college coaches, Division I coaches, I should say, going to be back on the road recruiting in about 15 months. So I can't thank you enough for making the time today. And it's very clear that there's a path and a vision for how BC basketball is going to get back on the map. And we appreciate you taking the time to share it with us here today.
Adam, thank you. I appreciate it, man. I look forward to seeing you out here on the road and seeing you here in Boston in the future.
Yeah, no doubt. Everybody, that is new Boston College head coach Earl Grant. I'm Adam Finkelstein, and you've been listening to the Upside Podcast.